A little while later, you and Cole reached the main street in town. All of a sudden, you stopped walking. What's wrong?
Hmm.
I think I heard my phone. You took your cell phone out and looked at it with a satisfied grin. There was a new message. You opened the new text from Miranda, and all you saw was, "I can see you." Immediately, from where you stood, you started swiveling your head around. You couldn't spot Miranda anywhere, but she did send you more messages. Haha, I see you looking. Where are you? The message was sent, and you were back to looking around, scanning for any sign of movement or familiar faces. But they were still invisible. Cole looked at you carefully, raising an eyebrow. You sent your own joking text. If you wanna keep hiding, Cove and I can just go do our own stuff without you, is what you decided on. You smirked. Hitting send on that message, Cove looked at you curious, raising an eyebrow. What's happening? Before you could even begin explaining anything to Cove, you both snapped your attention to the yelling from across the street. And there you saw Miranda and Terry coming out from behind the backside wall of the grocery store. They both started waving widely to draw even more attention to themselves. Cove took a step in their direction, grinning. He put his hands around his mouth to better project his message across the street. Hey! Laughing and arm in arm, the girls stopped only to look both ways and then rushed across the empty street. Hi, I hope you weren't waiting too long. Hey buddies. Hi. I'm amazed. How did you appear out of nowhere like that? They started giggling again. Terry glanced at Miranda, wondering what their story should be. It was magic. Gesturing in a vaguely whimsical manner, Terry went along with the decision. And magicians never reveal their secrets. That's fair. Terry then closed the distance between her and Cove and crushed him in a painfully tight hug. You're finally here. It's been so long. What took you? He did his best to eke out a reply with his chest being compressed. Sorry. Eventually, she let him go. Terry looked at him with a beaming smile, but Cole was distracted, rubbing his arms. Standing there, Miranda shifted her weight to her other hip. She watched Cole patiently with a bashful smile. Welcome back. Thanks. It finally felt official. Everyone was together in one place. From here, you weren't sure how often you would have another afternoon like this again. They didn't either. Cove. Terry poked Cove square in the chest. You're gonna have to get me your schedule by this time yesterday. Not really possible, Terry, but I can say as soon as I know. So far, work hasn't said anything, but I can tell you I'm busy with Orca activities. When Cole wasn't at his part-time job or pursuing his athletic and academic interests, he volunteered for the Ocean Restoration California Affiliation Orca. The group focused on cleaning up beaches and removing pollution from the ocean. Cove always loved the sea. It didn't surprise you one bit when you started getting involved with them. It was Cove's activity. Their big smash event for the year is coming right up, isn't it? Yeah, there's not that much more to do before then, but I'm kinda looking forward to the fundraising push. You nodded, wondering how the event would turn out this year. I know you can do it, and even if it goes really bad, it still look good on a college application at least. That's true. Hey, guess what else? We don't have to stand here to say stuff. Let's go. I would like a meal now. Perking up, Cole nodded in agreement. Yeah, I'm hungry. Time to head out. The four of you that headed into town, happily chatting the whole way. The only decision left to make was where exactly to stop and eat. The rest of the afternoon and evening passed by in a blink of an eye. When night fell, it was time to head home, and you parted ways with Miranda and Terry. You and Cove reached your neighborhood without event. It was late enough that your out-of-the-way street was dark and silent. You were walking tiredly after such a long day. You yawned, stretching your arms high over your head. It was taking a lot of mental focus to keep up and walk alongside Cove. As you did so, you peered at his face out of the corner of your eyes. You wondered why you felt so distant to you. It was out of character. For a while, Cove silently stared ahead and left you alone with your own thoughts. It surprised you when you did hear his voice all of a sudden. He still wouldn't look at you. It feels weird coming back to the neighborhood and trying to get into things like they're the same. And they're not. They've changed. They're still changing. Your mouth felt uncomfortably dry all of a sudden. It was true. The things that kept the people you knew together were starting to disappear. Each person had to make their own priorities and their own path now that it wasn't set for them. You thought about your own immediate future. You were still set on that for yourself you wanted to work full time. And that was the basics. For your career, you thought you'd find a company to work at. And for that, you wanted to go to different part of the state. It all be happening so soon. You hadn't begun to do anything about that yet. And you'd only spoken about this with family and those you were close to like Cove. Now you wondered what Cove had in mind. You'd heard him consider some things for his future, but it was never anything that would have counted as a real plan. Making it back home, you both stopped in the middle of the street. Cove sighed. Cove looked at the ground for a moment. His mouth trembled, trying to settle on the right words to say. So you're planning on working and stuff in another part of California? Yeah, you remembered. Cove closed his eyes and nodded while he composed his thoughts. He looked at you when he lifted his head. I decided on something. Well, kind of. He smiled slightly and rubbed his arms, and then his expression grew more serious. I'm not gonna decide on a school or a career, not this summer. I'm gonna stay here, at least in Sunset Burn. I'll probably move out of my dad's place. I'll keep working my job, keep doing my volunteer stuff, and everything else. Maybe
I don't
I'll
know.
know what I want for myself by fall or next year, or maybe I'll never have a plan. Life will continue on with whatever's happening. I'm not gonna crush myself trying to have everything figured out by a timeline that someone else has set. I just can't do it. His brow furrowed and his tone was tense. It was clear how much expectations they were expectations were weighing on him. I know that's not very exciting, but it's the best I can do right now. He laughed self-derisively, but with the way his face looked, you thought he actually wanted to cry. You smiled. Your plan sounds very you. Your head tilted affectionately ever so slightly to the side as you watched him process your response. Cove was going to continue doing things his own way and in his own time. He exhaled, releasing some tension in his shoulders. Thanks for hearing me out on this. You knew him well enough to know that Cove wasn't feeling completely better about the way things were. No matter what's happening, I want you to know that you won't ever lose me. I won't really be gone. I'll still be there for you the best I can, whether it's long distance or whatever else. Cove's whole expression softened. His lips pulled into an affectionate smile. Faye,
It's okay.
you deserve to have everything you want in life. I want you to get everything you want in your life. That flew out of your mouth immediately, but you meant every word. His mouth pulled into a delicate grin. Looking at you fondly, Cove took a step closer, and he placed a hand on your shoulder. The warmth from his proximity helped relax you. He spoke to you softly, wholeheartedly. He meant every word. Things are hard right now. It scares me, but it'll be okay. It'll be more than okay now that things are up to us. We can make our own lives better than they were ever. You believed him. No matter how daunting the future could be, he was right. You would be okay. Deeply, you met Cole's gaze. You nodded, and that his expression morphed into a look of careful confidence. Clearly, clearly, he was still struggling with this topic, and you wondered what else might be on his mind. This was a start, I think, but it's not over, is it? We'll have to keep talking about this going forward. Yeah. Cove softly reiterated his promise. It'll all be okay. We'll still always be there for each other. Is that good with you? It is. Cool. Then that's cool. I'll see you tomorrow, Faye. I'm already looking forward to it. Night. He pulled you into an unexpected hug. It knocked the breath out of you. It couldn't have been a more reassuring feeling. You returned his embrace and stayed that way for as long as you could.
Good night.
Night. He finally let go, giving you another smile. Then Cove started walking away, but you remained there, frozen in the middle of the street. You watched him and wondered how many more times will he be able to say that he'll see you tomorrow. You hoped for countless more times. Finally, you turned towards your own house. You vowed to yourself that you would make the most out of every moment you had this summer. Moths bounced against your window, attracted by the light of your room. A siren call in the slowly darkening sky, just as the day was coming to an end. So too would summer. Liz would be moving back into the dorms before long. Luckily, Lee had been able to come stay for a short trip before her own journey began. She'd officially been accepted to her first choice college a few weeks ago. This was her last chance to see you all in person for... You flicked through the plans for the next few months, realizing that you didn't even know when you'd next have the opportunity for everyone to be in the same place again. It was hard to think that you'd likely be seeing even less of your cousin going forward, but you were delighted that she was pursuing her dreams. While you were still with each other, your family was going to have dinner together. As ever, the Holdens were tagging along too. You were going to the Chinese restaurant. It was somewhere your family had always enjoyed going ever since you and Liz were tiny. That long-standing connection made it a fitting location for a final meal out before Liz and Lee set off again. Technically, you were getting ready to go out, though your mind was only half on the task. It was a pleasantly warm evening, and the kind that epitomized the vacation feelings, and you were in no mood to spoil it by rushing around. It was strange to think that summer was coming to an end, and yet you wouldn't be returning to school. That pattern had been in place for as long as you could remember, and had come to feel like a natural rhythm, as inescapable as the coming of the tide. This was the first time that you were going to be able to set your own tune. Whatever came next was entirely up to you. You couldn't wait to start your new life. You finally had the freedom to discover what you wanted to do with your life, no longer shackled by the commitments and constraints before. Mom called up from downstairs, tearing you from your thoughts as she told you it was time to head off. You raced downstairs, looking forward to the evening. Everyone piled into the car, while it was marketed as being suitable to hold 5 people. In practice, it made for a very tight fit. Your moms sitting in the front were fine. You, Liz, and Lee were squished into the back, Lee in the middle, wedged between you and your sister. But Mom was an excellent timekeeper. Thanks to her efforts, you pulled up near the restaurant on time. The process of getting out of the car was slightly easier than squeezing into it, with much less coordination required to release seatbelts than to secure them. You gave Lee a hand as she clambered out from the middle seat, then headed into the building as a group. A waiter greeted you as you entered. Ma let you know how many of you there would be in total, and he wanted to arrange a table that met your needs. He returned promptly to guide you to your seats. You perched comfortably in your seat chair, your head held aloft as if buoyed by today's good fortune. Your family settled down around you, all cheerful and looking forward to the evening ahead. Your drinks ordered had just been taken when the Holdens came through the door. They were pointed in your direction, though with Mom waving an arm in the air, it was hardly necessary. Cove and Mr. Holden came to join you at the table. As greetings were being exchanged, Cove took a seat opposite to you. It had been left empty by unspoken acknowledgement that you and Cove would be wanting to sit together. Mr. Holden sat beside him.
Hi!
It's great to see you. Glad you could make it. Hello everyone. You wouldn't believe how hungry I am.
I see.
You came to the right place then. There was some laughter, though Liz groaned playfully, shaking her head at Mom's sense of humor. Growing up, she'd have complained, and Mom would have responded by making another comment. Liz had mellowed over the years, but she still made a show of despairing at Mom's jokes. Her reaction to them had become a joke in its own right. Menus were soon passed around, and a temporary hush fell over the table as everyone read. It didn't last long, punctured by comments about what people had eaten here before and light chatter about what people were considering tonight. Once the waiter had disappeared
Okay.
with your orders, Cliff pipped up. So,
Okay.
I've got some good news. Kira's making a trip out here tomorrow. Cove nodded, turning from his father to the rest of the table. Yeah, we've talked about it and figured that it was a good time for everyone. That's great.
Very nice.
Everyone reacted positively to the news, though Ma looked wistful.
That's a
If
shame.
only we'd known. Here we are, having a big meal without her. If we'd waited one day, she could have joined us. Mom patted Ma on the back, gently nudging her from the realm of possibilities and what-ifs, and back to the evening that was going so well. Chin up. Lee and Liz will still be here tomorrow. We'll just have to throw another get-together and keep the fun train chugging along. Ma smiled warmly, taking Mom's hand in hers. That's true. There's plenty to celebrate right now, but there will be more good news and good times on the horizon. Right. And speaking of, that's not all we've got either. Mr. Holden's eyes were alight as he sat up straight in his chair, face angled towards his son. He barely let a beat go by before nudging Cove with his elbow, pushing him to follow up on the announcement. He was the very picture of the proud papa. Cove shied from the limelight, ducking his head down and staring at his lap as he spoke. Well, it's just I've switched over to working full-time instead of only part-time. Plus, I've been looking at apartment. There's a few I can choose from. He flicked his gaze up at everyone around the table, a smile creeping over his face. I'll be pretty busy going forward. Apartments. He was moving. Cove was going to move out of his dad's house. After 10 years, he wasn't going to be your neighbor anymore. Mr. Holden gripped one of Cove's shoulders and gave it a loving shake. His excitement couldn't be contained. Incredible. Cove's actually going to make it to adulthood. It's a miracle. Mr. Holden leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling in mock wonder. I wasn't convinced that I'd be able to rear a kid all the way to this point, but thankfully I lucked out and got the best boy a dad could have asked for. Dad. Cove blinkered his vision with his hands on the side of his face, temporarily blocking his father from sight. Despite his genuine bashfulness, which left him unable to meet anyone's eyes after all the attention thrust his way, he was happy. Thanks. I was really lucky, too. You're a good dad. Oh, come on. Mr. Holden threw an arm around Cole's neck, pulling him into as close of a hug as the seating allowed. He rubbed his cheek on the top of his son's head while Cove chuckled, accepting the affection from good humor. You looked around at the faces of the company here. You'd been on this journey with everyone here for years, seen them falter and grow, and they had watched you go through the same. Now you were striking out on a new path. Cole was leaving his family home. Liz was heading back to college, while Lee was starting at hers. You were all heading in different directions to different destinations, some near and some far, but it wouldn't be long until you were all going your own way. Your heart felt, it was bittersweet, sweet. You turned your head to the side, wistful, not wanting to spoil the evening with your troubles. You were glad that everyone was succeeding, but the idea of splitting up gave you a twinge of regret. These people had been key pillars in your life. Days ahead without them, no matter how bright and shiny, felt a little empty, like the theme park after closing time. But you focused your mind on the sweet side. New adventures were still ahead, and you could encourage that optimism. Cove brought some attention to himself with a clearing of his throat and a small interjection. I'm gonna stretch my leg while we're waiting for the food and everything. Sure thing, bud. With a tiny smile, he nodded at his dad, but the lightness to his expression faded when he moved to face you. Wanna come? He was attempting to be suitable, but there was very obviously something on his mind, something he wanted to talk to you about alone. You watched him with concern as he rose from the seat. Yeah, I'll go. Take care. With those parting words, the two of you walked about the place. He was trying to get as far away from everyone else as possible without actually exiting the building. What did you need to say? He hadn't admitted that was what this was about, but he didn't need to. Cove started pulling on the hem of his shirt. He turned his head back to face you, but it was an awkward movement. Well, I wanted to talk to you one-on-one about all this. You know, my work moving. I mean, it was coming before, but now it's pretty much here. Yeah, it's exciting. Cove stopped picking at his shirt, and he seemed to respond well to that response. He was relieved that you weren't upset about it. I'm glad you think so. But then he looked down at his brows furrowed. You saw his hand shift away from his clothes to instead rub at his arms. Are you looking forward to it? I am. Well, I'm trying to be. He ducked his head further, and you saw his face start to redden. But it's scary. I don't want things to end. Come on, you don't need to worry. It may be scary now, but it'll be worth it. I sure hope so. Cove then turned his head away and wrapped his arms around himself. You felt a sudden chill that definitely wasn't caused by the air conditioner. I was just thinking, are we really gonna stay friends? His words came out hesitantly. He didn't want to ask this. He didn't want to ask this. He didn't want a no. I'm not just talking about today, but forever, always, even if things change later. Right now, do you feel we can make it? Or do you think we can last? Or do you think we can't last? That one day we'll have to move on? You were as worried as he was. What if you grew apart? What if one day he just didn't want to keep up with you, his old... What if one day he just didn't want to keep up with his old neighbor? What if you both changed? You should already know the answer to that. You stared at him intently and he looked away again. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to make you feel bad by bringing this up. I don't know what I want. But I felt I had to say something about this. If not now, then when? Out of the corner of your eyes, you noticed a nearby table of people were staring. Cole's outburst had attracted attention. The eyes on you just made things worse. You felt overwhelmed, smothered by from everything going on. You couldn't handle this. I need some air alone. This is kind of sad. Cove seemed pained, but he didn't protest when you brushed past him and left the restaurant. There was nowhere else to go but out. You stepped onto the sidewalk. A couple cars drove by on the main street and the breeze hit your face. You took a few deep breaths now that the conversation was no longer suffocating you. You weren't quite sure what to do next. Gaining space had been the only plan. You patted your sides on reflex and pulled out the spare key for your mom's car. Walking fast, you went down the sidewalk to the part of the street where your parents had parked. You remembered going past a particular building on the way into the restaurant and managed to backtrack your way to the car without incident. You unlocked the car with a shaky push of the button. The headlights flashed. You pulled open one of the back doors and tucked yourself inside. You shut the door and the door beeped when you locked it again. While putting the keys away, you switched it out for your phone. There were concerned messages from your family. Were you okay? Was something happening? Another text came from your sister at the moment. You didn't respond to any of it and held down the power button. You looked back at your phone and stared at it blank screen. You could see part of your face reflecting back at you. Then you dropped your phone on the seat. You sat completely still. Your breathing slowed to a glacial pace and you were paralyzed where you sat. You weren't even sure what you were waiting there for. Then you tried to relax. You took a few deep breaths and tried to calm yourself. It was hard to get around your feelings of dread. A few minutes passed by. You breathed in the quiet. The car started to get warm, but you didn't feel like turning it on to get the AC going or roll down the street window. You wanted to text Cove where you went so he didn't worry. You picked up your phone from the cushion and pushed the power button. It took a minute to boot up. There were plenty of additional messages. You planned on checking out your family's text later and tapped on to Cove's number first. You could imagine him worrying about you. Hopefully, at least knowing you were somewhere secure would be enough. You texted him, sending it right from after you typed it. There were some mistakes, but the message not to worry should have still gotten through. Cove responded fast. It was almost immediate. Your phone displayed a message that said no and nothing else. You were about to send a question mark when another text followed. Can I come? I'm kind of already here. What? When you looked up from your phone and out the window, nothing stood out as obvious perfectly cove-shaped, and he wasn't easy to miss. You were about ready to text him back when you saw a shock of green out of the corner of your eye. Cove stood up. He'd been sitting on the pavement, leaning against the car door. He straightened out and smiled carefully. He pointed towards the closest car door and raised his shoulders in a clear question. He wanted to know if it was okay to hop in. You nodded, not seeing the point of keeping him awkwardly outside. Cove walked around to the other side of the door opposite of you. He put his hand on the door handle and pulled. He tried to open the door and obviously wasn't expecting it to be locked. You pressed the unlock button and he smiled after he heard the click. He sat down and quietly closed the door behind him. For a moment, he faced straight ahead,